Iran threatens to assassinate a U.S. official, and Trump promises retaliation. Bigly retaliation. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. According to U.S. intelligence sources, Iran is plotting to kill the U.S. ambassador to South Africa. Why South Africa? I'll get to that in a bit. President Trump took to top presidential platform Twitter to respond. Any attack by Iran in any form against the United States will be met with an attack on Iran that will be 1,000 times greater in magnitude. I can't believe he said that. Never give specific numbers, Mr. President, because it leads to this inevitable headline. You know, if Trump loses the election, there are going to be a lot of unemployed fact-checkers out there. But back to the Iranian assassination threat. The ambassador to South Africa, Lana Marks, has been made aware of the threat. U.S. intelligence apparently knew there was a general threat against her since spring, but apparently it became more specific. The Iranian embassy in Pretoria, South Africa, is involved in the plot. However, attacking Marks is one of several options U.S. officials believe Iran's regime is considering. You see, Iran is still pretty upset about that whole killing their top general in January. Yes, remember when we started 2020 off thinking the worst thing we'd have to deal with this year was another war in the Middle East?
He's now taken us to the precipice of war, and we may actually end up in a war.
Well, guess what? The media was wrong about that one. I know, I'm shocked too. Soleimani was the commander of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard's elite Quds Force, which the U.S. has designated a terrorist organization. The U.S. says Soleimani and his forces had been involved in destabilizing conflicts throughout the Middle East for decades. Instability in the Middle East. It's not all his fault, or even all his fault. But it's definitely partly their fault. Anyway, in 2019, we saw Iran getting more and more aggressive. There was the attack on oil tankers in May that year. In June, Iran shot down a U.S. drone. In July, a British oil tanker was seized. In September, Iran was likely behind the attack on two Saudi Arabian state-run oil companies. And at the time, Trump tweeted, "Any attack by Iran on anything American will be met with great and overwhelming force. In some areas, overwhelming will mean obliteration." Then in December, an Iranian-backed militia in Iraq launched a rocket attack that killed an American. In response, the U.S. launched airstrikes against those Iranian-backed forces in Iraq and Syria, which led to pro-Iran forces attacking the U.S. embassy in Iraq. And then, Trump made good on his threat by killing Soleimani. So now, Iran wants to get revenge by assassinating the U.S. ambassador to South Africa. Why her? Well, Iran's initial attempts to retaliate for Soleimani's death didn't go so well. A few weeks after Soleimani was killed, the Iranian military mistook a Ukrainian civilian airliner for a U.S. missile and shot it down, killing 176 people and leading to fury inside Iran at the regime's incompetence and shifting explanations for the incident, along with condemnation abroad. Okay, so killing all those innocent passengers made the Iranian regime look bad. But killing a defenseless woman, now that'll make everyone respect them. Which will be about as successful as that arrest warrant Iran issued for Trump at the end of June. So why is the Iranian regime targeting Lana Marks? The intelligence community isn't exactly sure why Iranians would target Marks, who has few, if any, known links to Iran. However, she is a longtime friend of Trump's. She joined Mar-a-Lago back in 2010 because other Palm Beach clubs wouldn't let her join because she's Jewish. And Trump was criticized for nominating Marks as ambassador to South Africa. She was derided as just a handbag designer. How dare Trump nominate a successful businesswoman to a position of power? Except, of course, that Marks is actually from South Africa and speaks some of the country's key languages, like Afrikaans, which could come in useful because Iran apparently has a huge influence over South Africa. Iran and South Africa have a military relationship. South Africa has also advocated for Iranian interests at the UN, siding with Iran on critical issues at the UN Security Council and the International Atomic Energy Agency. And check this out. This was a 2015 report from Al Jazeera and The Guardian, based on leaked intelligence documents. It found that Iran has an extensive spy network in South Africa. And since Iran has a history of carrying out political assassinations, this could make Marks an easier mark, especially since it's easier for Iran to carry out an assassination in South Africa than in, say, France. But if you think this is only about the US killing of Soleimani, then you're wrong. And I'll tell you why after this short break. Welcome back. Unless YouTube demonetized this video, in which case this whole commercial break thing was a bit awkward. Support America Uncovered on Patreon. Now, as I said, there's something more to Iran's assassination threats than just retaliation for the US killing of Soleimani. Iran is becoming increasingly isolated in the Middle East. President Trump has managed to broker historic peace deals between Israel, the United Arab Emirates, and now Bahrain. In fact, a member of the Norwegian parliament nominated Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize for it. Or should I say, a far-right Norwegian MP, because designations like far-right make a lot of sense when you're talking about the politics of Norway. Now, while these peace deals are historic, they're actually totally insignificant, and Trump still hasn't achieved total peace in the Middle East, even after an entire 3.5 years in office. But I bring up these peace deals because they're related to Iran. Trump called them the foundation for a broader alignment against Iran that would fundamentally change the geopolitical dynamic in the region, a dynamic that aligns countries with Israel, which Iran considers its mortal enemy. So these peace deals put a lot of pressure on the Iranian regime. Speaking of pressure, the US is also trying to snap back sanctions on Iran, which I talked about in a previous episode. And while some European countries aren't a fan of how the US is dealing with Iran, more Middle Eastern countries could be coming on board for the peace deal, at least according to Trump.
And we have many other countries going to be joining us, and they're going to be joining us soon. We'll have, I think 7 or 8 or 9. We're going to have a lot of other countries joining us.
No, he did it again. He gave specific numbers. Get ready for this inevitable headline. But as with anything, how this all plays out depends on who is sitting in the White House in 2021. So what do you think of Iran trying to assassinate a US official? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And I want to let you know that because of the coronavirus, YouTube ad revenue is way down. A lot of advertisers have pulled out, so we could really use your help. You can support the show for as little as $1 per episode on the crowdfunding website Patreon. Visit patreon.com/America Uncovered to learn how. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.